Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, Corey.
How you doing?
Good. We're live over here at Enda Coffee, having our first startup spotlight here at Enda. You can see all the awesome people behind us and the roaster to our front. So we're definitely taking advantage of this really nice new building over on Sumter Street.
Absolutely, it's really cool.
I'm Tia Williams. I'm the CEO and editor of Midlands Anchor, and excited to have Corey because I've been recommended you by 3 people now that I needed to get with you and find out what you're doing with Qwerkz.
Yeah, you late to the party.
I know, obviously. Do you have to say I'm switching it up? I got my Enda coffee. See how pretty that is?
Yeah,
it's a nice little latte.
It's really nice.
Normally we drink beer, but I
it
needed
is
my
about
coffee
100
today.
degrees outside though.
It's fine. It's not that hot yet.
I made the mistake of walking down from my office, not anticipating the distance and the heat and that whole equation, so I'm a little sweaty right now.
Well, good for you for walking, though. We're big fans of walking around here. All right, Corey, so you are a former NFL defensive lineman?
Yep, defensive end, yeah.
Awesome. And then you were at the Broncos. I guess go through your whole spiel. I know that
The whole spiel?
The whole spiel. I think it's important because I think it's going to play into what you're doing with Qwerkz and how that relates.
Yeah. So initially, I was a basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
So started off as a basketball player in high school. Didn't get recruited by anybody, so I ended up, just working at Walmart, doing that type, just getting a job, doing what people do. Found out that wasn't my thing, right? Hated it. So I figured out one day that I could change the situation. So purchased a one-way bus ticket. Heard about this college that had a basketball team, junior college in Texas. So I decided just to buy a ticket and show up.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I did that, showed up on the bus. Fortunately, I got into school.
Which college was that?
It was Ranger College out in Ranger, Texas. We're actually wrapping up a documentary on that whole story right now.
Okay.
So it should be available or at least finished in the next few weeks.
Very cool.
So I did that. So my journey kind of started with me pretty much betting on myself.
Okay.
Because everyone pretty much written me off for it's my idea of what I'm supposed to be. And so I went through that process, got into school, got on the basketball team, eventually became one of the best basketball players on the team. Got a scholarship at the University of Nevada, which was an awesome experience, right? Going from no scholarship and to being able to get a scholarship at the University of Nevada. Did really well. Expected to go to the NBA like we all do, right? Didn't happen. No one picked me again, right? That type of thing. Went back to school, finished my degree. Football coaches asked me to play football. Played a semester.
What did you get your degree in?
Speech communication.
Cool.
Yep.
That's helpful.
So,
I was communications in undergrad.
Yeah. So I talk a lot, and so I figured that would be kind of the thing for me to do. You know? But did that, played football for a semester, didn't really do anything outstanding during that time. But scouts came to the school and they started asking about this basketball player that played football, and they saw me work out, and the rest was history.
That's cool.
So the first team I signed with was the Cleveland Browns, straight out of college. Phenomenal experience. Sucky team because we couldn't win. That was the tough part, right? I'm a competitor. I want to win all the time, and we were losing, and that was tough. But it taught me a lot. I learned a lot, and I think part of the reason you asked me to even kind of elaborate on these experiences is how do I get to where I am today? Being in the NFL contributed a lot to my understanding of entrepreneurship,
right?
And how do you get the things you want, right? And how do you operate?
At a high level? Personal branding, I'm sure, is a huge
absolutely.
part of that.
And I think people confuse the two, right? Entrepreneurship and personal branding, two totally different beasts, two different things. And so all of those things kind of mixed up in the pot is kind of what I learned for being there. So I was in Cleveland for a few years, and then eventually I went to Denver, which was fantastic, right? Really good team, great coach, Mike Shanahan. Yep. Coach was fantastic. The team was good. We were winning. And so that's pretty much where my career went, from Cleveland to Denver, and then I wrapped up there. And most guys try to have an idea, some concept of what they want to do when they're not playing sports, which is difficult because you contribute a lot of time to sports.
Yeah.
But what I did, like the minute I got into the league, I started like working on like what I want to do, because I realized that, contrary to popular belief, there is a lot of time you have, downtime, to work on things you care about.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that. I started a real estate company initially. Started traveling, speaking.
Yeah.
You know, did that.
What kind of real estate did you practice?
So we actually, it was a REIT, so Real Estate Investment Trust. So we created it. I partnered with a guy out of DC. So we went through that whole experience of creating something from the ground up and working on it. And I learned a lot in that experience too, working with people independently that have different backgrounds, different ideas.
And real estate is just the best snapshot of how communities work.
Oh, absolutely.
Basically anything you can find.
Oh, yeah. And so how I got here to Qwerkz, so I'm doing all these different endeavors, creating different things, different opportunities. And I realized that there were other guys doing really cool things too. But the narrative from the mass standpoint was more geared towards the negative stuff, right? Like guys going broke and you know, getting in trouble, going to jail. You know, it was like a lot of that type of information being like pushed out on a consistent basis. And obviously it attracts people, right? That type of content people gravitate to. And so I saw that and I'm saying, well, my friends are not doing that. Like that's not happening with us.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that, right? And so that's when I started working on the idea. And so we're basically a media company that focus on entrepreneurial athletes. And so we focus on all the cool things that athletes are doing that no one knows they're doing. You know, guys are creating headphone technology, wearable technology, guys are doing lifestyle brands, all really cool stuff, and they're doing well. And no one knows this, right? And so I decided to create this community where those guys can go and talk about the things they're doing and share it with their audience. And fans can come and see and digest all of this information about things that athletes are doing. And you can resonate with an athlete in a different way now. And an athlete can actually grow their audience and their brand bigger because now you can identify me with not just Corey Jackson, the athlete, but Corey Jackson, the entrepreneurship, an entrepreneur that owns a media company that works with other athletes. And so you kind of broaden your audience that way.
Yeah, knowing how to grow a network, but also manage a network. And I mean, managing a network is exactly like managing a business. I don't think people realize, you know, now you can hop on Instagram and have a couple thousand followers pretty quickly, and then you get that bug and you get excited about it growing. But I don't think many people go into it understanding there's a business strategy involved with that. If you actually wanted to make it part of your company, make it part of your idealism and who you are. So I'm sure you learned a lot about that just through the process of going through so many years and making that story consistent and really figuring out how to tune into the areas of your brand that resonate and how to, you know, fine tune the areas that probably work within what you're selling instead of just everything about Corey Jackson. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what I learned is just being your authentic self, right? Being your true self is the best way to grow a brand, right? Like I think sometimes we get so diluted with all these things that's happening around us that it becomes difficult to stay consistent because you're saying, oh, that works. Oh, I see that works over there.
And which is what you do in business. There's so many mirrors to that. And
I think the moment you say, you know what, I don't, you know, all this other stuff around me is not that important. What's important is what's real to me. And the minute you start sharing like real ideology, real content, real like from the soul, like the audience is going to grow because people can see that. They can connect with that. It resonates with them.
Which is why I love doing these spotlights and hearing about the personal story behind entrepreneurs, because that's really what, you know, the more you can tune into that story and keep that at the forefront, the better it seems your company will do through the ups and downs and everything else that comes, because it's always been about that passion. That passion inside of you is what sells. And so
absolutely.
If you ever lose track of that passion because you get into who knows what other ventures just because they're available, I think that's when it gets hard in business.
Well, and one of the most difficult things for entrepreneurs is the patience part of it, right? Like you have to be so patient, and people want it right now. Like, and if you want it right now, don't become an entrepreneur. Like, it's not going to happen like that. You know, I tell people it took me I was 23 when I got to the NFL. I started playing sports when I was 5, 18 years, like to literally like get to somewhere that I wasn't even really trying to go. I was trying to go to the NBA at the time, right? And so I tell people, you have to put that time in, you have to be patient, because we put so much pressure on ourselves to like arrive right now.
Right.
You know, and so for me, and even with, you know, with Qwerkz and even my personal brand, I'm patient with it. I'm willing to give extreme amounts of value, right? I'm willing to give it out to the point where people be like, man, I'm a little suspicious of this thing, right? But he's giving so much. But I know that that's the long game. And most entrepreneurs don't always understand that you got to play the long game.
Right.
Because if you're playing for 2 years down the road, like, because things change so fast, like you can't predict that. You can have a plan for it, but you can't predict it, right? And so you have to be prepared to go long.
Yeah. Are you one of those people that likes to write down your ideals and values and strategy and kind of have a general idea of how you're moving along, or what's your strategy and style when it comes to staying motivated?
So I think the biggest thing that motivates me, or when I look at being motivated or having this excitement around what I do, it's doing it my way, right? And when you're doing something your way, that's the most vulnerable space to be in, right? Because I'm not trying to appease you, I'm not trying to appease these guys over here. And so I'm more excited about proving that my way is the right way, right? Like I can make it work. And that's been pretty much the theme throughout my life. Like, well, everybody did it this way. Well, what if that way doesn't work for me, right? And so I understand that I have a way about me that's different than some people, and that's okay. I use that to my advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I always love how I hear a good bit of people that are those types. They have to write it down. They might not even look at it again for 6 months or a year later, but they have to write it down at least to start, because that's committing it to the page. And then they'll have all kind of other random ways that they figure out how to stay the course. Because I know, I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize, even with the anchor and what we're going through with this, like, your business can actually grow so quickly, and it is almost harder that way, or there are things that you have to deal with you never thought you'd have to deal with, and it's just something about whatever your center is, and that's different for everybody, because we all have different ways of how we interpret information and challenges, but how you figure out your center and getting back to your center is, I mean, that's what we do, is we get back to the center of, we like to tell really amazing stories, and we like to be part of the community in a way that other media companies really haven't done, that I've seen in the Columbia area. And so for us, no matter what track we get on, we have to come back to that and figure out where that is.
But that's real, right? So you don't even have to write that down. You know, like, that's just real.
Right.
And so the things I write down I write down tons of ideas and thoughts and things like that. But like the truest thing, I know. I don't have to write it down. It's a part of me. It's a part of who I am.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
So with Qwerkz, I guess talk a little bit about exactly what it is, how it functions. I did download the app and I got to look through it. It's pretty cool. You got a lot of stories on there and ways that you can connect with people. What have you learned through that process as far as, one, how it generally works and how it's evolving to better meet the needs of connecting these fans with the athletes?
Yeah, I think that the first thing we noticed that the athletes are really excited about having a place to share these unique experiences.
How many athletes do you have on there right now?
Right now, like, we have about 100 maybe athletes, and that's current and former athletes. And so they were really excited about sharing those experiences with the fans and the people who are paying attention, but also with each other, right? We're extremely supportive and competitive with each other, and so I like to know what, you know, my fellow athlete is doing and what they're working on. And so that was kind of like the first thing, and that was a great sign. I think the next thing was just how we drive interactions, which is moving us to the next step. So we're really big on video now, and so we're gonna, like, this summer is gonna be really huge for us, because we're meeting with a lot of athletes and we're walking into their environments where they're actually working in their companies and their businesses, and they're doing things that you wouldn't see them do. And we're gonna video all those interactions so that everyone else can see what's really happening. So we're going behind the scenes and we're working really closely with them to, like, get that message out.
Right. So what does the monetization look like for that? have opportunities to get hired out by athletes that want to basically leverage your platform in their own endeavors, or is there a mix of other income streams? And
yeah, I mean, we have it's really like most media companies, right? We have advertising, we have sponsorship opportunities. We also have pieces where we can create brand partnerships and cross-branding, not only for ourselves, but with the athletes and other unique brands as well. So it's a huge opportunity from that monetization standpoint, because we can attract really a really wide array of different type of entities and individuals.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and obviously there's money around the sports industry, and I can see it being a huge value. So before we started streaming, you said that you were able to tap into the USC Honors College, and you found some really interesting ways locally to get your brand off the ground and to really get it moving. How have you utilized the local talent?
Yeah, I think it's big, right? Like to be able to connect with local talent, and especially for me, I'm big on young talent, right? Because
you obviously are.
Yeah, and because like what I was saying with you is because I want the rawness of it. I don't want, a lot of people have been, if they've been doing stuff for a long time, they have generated this idea of how things are supposed to be done, and they lose that creative piece, right? And so I look for creativity, and I think that, when I partnered with the USC Honors College, it was an awesome thing, even from a research standpoint, like, and how we document things, and
they're so rich.
Yeah,
their brains are like sponges. They want to absorb everything.
And they're learning at the same time. And if you think about it, it makes so much sense, because we're a startup and we're learning at the same time. And so I want to get people on board that want to learn with us and also contribute at the same time. And we want to give them so much value back.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to say, well, yeah, we started out with this thing that was really nothing, and then we helped it grow into something, and that's the experience that most people can't share it.
And as an entrepreneur, is that something that really brings you a lot of joy as well? Like whenever you see them have that aha moment with what you're doing and feel personally connected? Because I know for me, when I have my interns tell me how much they appreciate being part of this and having the opportunity, I'm like, I don't think I can hear anything that's more of a compliment than that they actually feel like they're bought into the story and the brand as well.
Absolutely. I think because it's no way to really know what entrepreneurship really is other than just do it, right?
Right.
So I had a couple kids that I was talking to, and they created this website for this company, specifically for a specific company to do a specific thing, right? And it was a really great idea. They took it into this contest, and in their minds it was a foregone conclusion, right? We're going to win the contest. They're going to use our website. We're going to, it's going to be great. But they didn't get picked, right? And so they kind of gave up on it. And so we were talking, and I'm just like, well, what are you going to do next? What's the next best move, right? And they were like, what do you mean? They didn't pick us, And I'm like, okay, but what's the next best move? Because in entrepreneurship, that's the thing, right? So like, imagine me going out on the football field on Sunday, right? They kick the ball off, boom. I'm running down the field, and I have no idea that they're hitting people out there, right? And so I'm running down the field, and someone comes and like just smashes me and knock my helmet off, right? And I fall into the dirt, grass all in my face. I get up, and I'm probably never going to want to do that ever again, right? That's entrepreneurship. Like, you have to know you're going to get hit. Like, if you don't know you're going to get hit, it's going to take the fight out of you. You're going to give up. You're going to be like, man, I didn't know like this was going to happen, right? And so all these different things happen in the course of like starting your own venture, whether it's funding issues, whether it's talent issues, whether it's business model issues. Like, you're going to run into so many different things that's going to hit you so hard, and you have to be built for that. You have to know it's coming. Like, when I'm on the football field, I get hit, I get up. I'm like, all right, that's a part of the game.
Right.
But most people don't know that when it comes to entrepreneurship, that's a part of the game.
Right.
And it's just part of it.
Right, especially because there's a lot of really talented people that, they kind of learn how to game the system from an early age. Like school, there's a basic pattern to school. You can probably be pretty successful and not have a lot of failure. Or you could like go through, your first entry level jobs or whatever. And there's a lot of people that are very, very smart people that go through life afraid because they've never really failed before. Like, to them, failure is the ultimate, dead end. And that's like something that they're so scared of because they've never actually done it. And so I think it's interesting how a lot of entrepreneurs usually aren't always the the smartest person you ever knew or the person that fit that mold, because a lot of times there are people that are just scrappy and they learn from an early age how to be resilient. And so, I mean, they're usually very intelligent people too, but you know what I mean? There's a different style to that. You have to be okay with the fact that it's not conventional.
And I tell people, because people ask me all the time, right? Like, what was the difference between you and other people that were in the same situation as you and wasn't able to get to school and wasn't able to make it to the league and do all those things, right? And I'm like, well, the only difference was two things. I was willing to start and I wasn't willing to stop.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, and so anything you want in life, if you go by those two rules, you gotta be willing to start and not be willing to stop. And you can get there. It always happens.
Yeah.
Now, I tell people, don't fall in love with the idea, right? My idea was the NBA, right? I ended up in the NFL, right? I got a great result. So I fall in love with the result, not the idea, because if I fell in love with the idea, I would have kept like fighting for something that would probably never happen, right? And so I had to be able to say, the result I want is to be a pro, right? That's what I want to be,
right?
And this is the opportunity.
How you get there, who knows what that is?
Yeah. And so, and you can't predict that, right? It's just, especially with entrepreneurship, it's unpredictable.
Yeah,
like, things change. Like my business model today could change tomorrow, like completely. Something can happen in the industry to change the whole thing. And do I pack up and go home? Right? Like tuck my tail between my legs and run off? No, like I figure it out.
Yeah. You know? So what is your biggest challenge right now? Like, what is the thing that might keep you up at night, or you're just kind of it's churning back there, and you're going to overcome it, but it's that thing that you're fighting right now. You're trying to get over the hump, or whatever that might look like.
I would say this. I don't have one of those things, right? Because I'm a little different. I'm not afraid of what could go wrong. Like, that's not what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of shortchanging my audience. I'm afraid of not giving enough value, right? And so for me, it's that relentless focus on, like, how can I drive more and more value? How can I drive, like, and I want to keep like that at the core of who we are, right? Because at the end of the day, like, once people believe you, they trust you, they're going to be a part of that, and they're gonna be loyal to that, right? And so that's why amazing brands happening. That's why amazing companies happen, because they drive so much value, and people fall in love with that. Right.
It's so smart to key on that, because I think right now, especially, it's a good time for entrepreneurs because the digital age has made it easier, but it's also a hard time because the digital age has made it easier. So, like, you just have to be that much more. You have to be that much more of a believer in what you're doing, because if you don't, how are people going to actually, like, focus on you when there's so many other things that they can focus on at the same time?
Well, you have to learn how to create separation, right? And so it makes you, you have to be better, right? And you have to be, and like we started the conversation off, more truer to yourself than ever, because the more authentic you are, it's hard for people to replicate that, right? And so that's a separation. But it's hard because, like I said, it's so many outside influences saying this works, this works, this works. Well, if everybody's doing it, yeah, it works. But at what scale, at what level will it work for me, right? And so that's what I've learned. I'm glad it works, but that doesn't mean it works for me. So it's a lot of influences, right? A lot of influences that people listen to and have great insight. But it's just insight, right? They don't know you. They don't know your business. They don't know your personality. They don't know anything about you, right? So they can only give you general information. And so it's up to you to put that in the right context and decide, right? I have to decipher, is this useful or not? Do I keep it or I don't, right? And
that's such a tough part of business ownership, because it's so important. You have to have mentors. Like, nobody has made it without having a mentor, but knowing how to stay true to yourself through that process, and especially like the Anchor's kind of like that. We jumped straight into a completely new product and a new market, and there is no real example out there for us to follow. So we have to go on our gut and that true part of why we started and how we're going to grow and how we're going to actually make it long term. So I think you're right. Like, if you don't figure out how to be adaptable and figure out how to like take things in stride and know where you have good criticism and know where, you know, it's usually a gut feeling. You just know in your gut when it's right or not.
It's hard to describe that, right? And so no one can tell you that's wrong. And so, like I said, being committed is a part of it, right? When I'm committed to it, I'm willing to see it through and to find out. I won't change on every little piece of advice, right? It may be great advice, it may be great information.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll keep that to the side over here.
Yeah.
But we have to know. We have to find out by doing it the truest way possible.
Yeah. Where'd the name Qwerkz come from?
Yeah, so I was really kind of like trying to lock in on a name that actually means something, right? Like, I mean, because there's a lot of cool names, and what I did
Sounds like a very techie app name.
It's actually a combination between like the word quirk, right? Like quirky, right? And like work, right? And so like, because of the sound, right? And so different, you know, outside of the box, not typical, right? And so these athletes are doing things that are not typical. It's outside of the box, and then it's connected to work, right? And so
like
that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, I kind of guessed that just based on what you said. But that's cool. What would you say about Colombia, specifically this market, because it was last year that you got this up and running, correct?
Actually, this year. I started working on the concept last year.
Okay.
We launched the app this year.
Okay. So being in the Colombia market, what has that been like for you? Like, has it been kind of an easy place to navigate, or are you kind of leaning more on your like other NFL connections and other people outside of the state maybe to help in that process?
Well, a couple things, right? So we have athletes from all over. So the whole world have athletes, right?
Yeah.
So it's really big for us, you know, from a global standpoint. But when you kind of like drill down here locally, I think all I see is opportunity. Like it's a huge, huge space, an opportunity here that excites me.
Yeah.
And that's why I partner with the USC Honors College, because I know like young people are like really excited about doing really cool things.
Every single startup spotlight, it feels like it comes back around to that. It's the university is the biggest untapped resource for the startups.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the cost of living and all that stuff probably helps too. Just being able to have a base here that you can focus. You don't have to pay so much just to like get off the ground, and you could focus internationally even while you're here.
Yeah, I think for me, it's awesome being here because I travel a lot anyway, right? And so I get to go, like I was in New York recently, we were in Dallas, Phoenix, you know, like we just move around. And it's always good to kind of come back here because you kind of break away a little bit from the intensity of constant pounding, right? And so you still get to work how you work, but when you home, right? You're not in a hotel, and you know, and you're not still like trying to work from the hotel and doing things like that. You kind of get to I can work from my patio, and I can, you know, like I can just kind of hang out and work that way if I want, right? But I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be here. I think the growth from an entrepreneurship standpoint is crazy. Like the opportunity. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And it's only a matter of time.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost like if some things almost just get out the way,
yeah.
it'll happen. So are you, how do you get your inspiration? Do you have certain books that you're crazy about, podcasts? What is your thing? I know that you're big on personal motivation and that kind of stuff, but where do you get some of that good stuff from?
So early on, like, maybe like my early 20s, I used to read a lot of books. I started reading a lot. And then I kind of phased out on that. And now more of my inspiration is more of my awareness. One, my awareness of myself. I'm really big on everything, like from my health and to, you know, finances and to, you know, the whole thing. Like I'm really like aware of all of those things. And then I pay attention to things around me, things that are happening in my space, things that that's happening in my industries, and I get excited about things like that.
Yeah.
Because most people, they consume content, they consume things, but they don't really pay attention to it. So, for instance, and I'll give you a clear example, right? If you're watching me right now and you watching us have this conversation, you're listening to what we're saying, right? But you don't get to see what I'm doing,
right?
And so that's why we're big. That's why my guy have the camera over here. That's why I have the Facebook Live right there, and that's why like we want to show people what's really happening.
Right.
Because now you can become aware of like, oh, that's why he do what he do, right?
Yeah.
Versus saying, oh, Corey said this, that was cool, but you have no idea.
You
like,
don't have the context.
Yeah, but I can show you that this is what I do.
Yeah.
You call me at 4:30 in the morning, I'm going to answer because I'm up, right? Like, I'm like, oh my God, like he's really up. Like, and so, like, I think that for me is the big thing, like just being that. Like,
yeah, that's cool. I know, I think it's funny how that's the one thing I connect on when I'm talking to a lot of entrepreneurs is it quickly comes around to like, okay, so what are all your like non-work things? Because we all have those. Like, and I really like, I used to be in a more stable position where I just enjoyed to work, so I would talk about it all the time.
Yep.
And then you get into it where like something about having that personal brand that becomes part of your life and everything that you're doing, it's wonderful and exhausting at the same exact time. So everybody has their like their thing that they like run away to, that's like their outlet, that their like happy place that's completely separated from work. And do you have something like that, or like a group of friends that you just literally just are stupid with and you don't have anything work related you talk about? Or
I think for us, like my friends, like my friends that I talk to on a consistent basis, we're similar. Like we talk about work. Like we're excited about that. We talk about that all the time. I think the one thing that breaks me away from everything is, you know, my wife and my two sons, right? You know, CJ's 6, and so he's growing so fast, and he's learning so much, and I don't want to miss a whole lot of that. And then Cash, he's 6 months, so he's gonna have a lot of first things happening, right? Walking and talking, and you know, doing a lot of that stuff. So, and you know, being able to do that is kind of that one thing that like kind of breaks me away, and it kind of melts me down, softens me up a little bit, right? But my wife is tremendously understanding. She's, oh my God. Like, sometimes I'll be like, man, I don't know. Like, baby, you okay? Like, she's like, yeah, I'm good. Just do your thing, you know. And I'm like, cool, you know.
That's awesome.
But it's just a perfect situation because it's hard to, you know, sometimes have somebody that understands. Like when I tell you I'm committed to it, I'm committed to it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's no turning away from that.
That's cool. I know that's special.
Yeah.
So what's next for Qwerkz? Like, where do you see it heading? Like, what would be ideally, you know, a good stage for a year out, and then maybe 5 years out, and then what do you see the landscape of that looking like, I guess, when you get to where you really want to be?
Yeah, I think we'll never get to where we really want to be. Let's just put that out there, because
or you're hitting your stride.
Yeah, and so I think this summer's going to be big for us. Just like having really live interactions with the athletes, and really being able to drive content from that standpoint to our audience, so that the other users on our platform can engage with the athletes on a more personal level. I think that's going to take us, you know, into a whole nother level, and then we have a lot of different features and ideas that we're adding to the fold that's different from like a typical media company, like, you know, investing in companies and being a part of that, and being a part of the growth of these companies and these athletes' journey as they grow and as they develop into great entrepreneurs as well. So yeah, it
seems like there are lots of possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
I can imagine going in many directions.
It's exciting. It's exciting. Like I said, you know, I always been the one to bet on myself. Like I can't imagine betting on someone else other than me, right? Like it's almost insane, you know. Like, but I have a unique experience, and I have a connection with these athletes that resonates really well. You know, we have these events, and we go to these different events, and you get to talk to a lot of your guys that you either played with, or you know, you have a mutual teammate, and you know, it's just a fantastic thing to see guys like striding outside of the league. Like what I learned, right? So most people don't know, and I kind of go on this right quick. So what most people don't know is like if you're the average athlete, the opportunity is bigger outside of the sport. If you're like the superstar athlete, you know, it's okay, you good, you know. But the average athlete, the potential is way bigger outside of the game, right? And so a lot of us been able to tap into that, and now we know, like, oh my God, like there's so much more. So that's our tagline. Actually, there's more.
That's cool.
Right? There's more layers. There's more to us. There's more things to identify with and connect with.
Yeah. So mentorship seems like a huge opportunity, or it sounds like it would be something that you value and you consider important. Have you thought about, I guess, another layer of this, or maybe even has a philanthropic arm where these athletes really can connect better, even with like high school students and guys that are and girls that are trying to like find their place and find their path, like ways that you guys can integrate into the school systems or other ways that they can be more present whenever opportunities are available in the local communities?
Yeah, I think the possibilities, like you said, are endless for that. I think one of the main things that we're focused on right now is making sure that we are sharing the message and the stories in a way that's entertaining and it's captivating, so that young people can gravitate to it.
Right.
And then now you have this audience that's paying attention to you. And then it makes it easier for you to connect with those individuals, because now they say, oh no, he really earned it. Like he really went and took his lumps and built something special.
I think the potential's huge. I mean, just that the message has always been important.
Over here.
Having any kind of like a really good coach or some kind of mentor I know I played 3 different varsity sports in high school and that kind of thing too. Like, there's nothing that could focus you better at an age where you're literally all over the place, and there's a lot of people that just need that kind of discipline and that guidance. I just could see a whole spin-off part of this app being a way to like really engage those kids that if they hadn't had that, we don't know, they would have not hit their potential nearly as quickly, or they wouldn't have been able to find that path that, like how you described, finding your way to where you are. I don't know. That's the stuff that gets me excited. I feel like it could be a really cool thing.
And I think that, like, from just a structural standpoint, like creating something is really cool, and I think the potential for that is really big. I think the idea itself around what's really happening is doing that.
Yeah. Right.
And so if you get to see Corey Jackson doing certain things, and so we have this bond because I'm an athlete, and I'm like, well, Corey says there's more, and he's like over here because we get consumed with it as athletes. We really consumed with the sport itself, and showing them like, you can be a little more diverse, and you can be creative and innovative, and you can, be in the different things that like even people around you are not into. And you'll be surprised I don't know if you've ever been in an NFL locker room before.
Nope.
But you'll be very surprised of how diverse that locker room is, right? You have people listening to hip hop music, jazz, or you have like rock, or you may have people who are intellectuals and they're it's a vast like thing, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just not just that one idea of what an athlete is, right? And I think that's what's special about Qwerkz.
Yeah, I love that. Well, in general, not just with athletes, but one thing we're passionate about at the Anchor is knowing that people are really complex in a beautiful kind of way. And we like to tell everyday normal stories that show there's so many more opportunities for overlap in the community than the strife and things that we see a little more often because, politics or whatever it might be. And that's what's neat. It's never going to get old. Just telling those stories is as old as time. Like, that's just how people connect with each other and how they find their roots and their stability and their focus. Just like, you probably found that in an early age through other people that helped demonstrate that to you. So. And
it's nothing like a cool story. I mean, that's what the world kind of is built on. Like all of these fantastic stories that happen throughout the time, and people still hold them close today.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so what are next steps for people that want, obviously they can get on the app, it's in all the App Store and everywhere else, it's free.
It's on iOS, it's in the Google Play Store as well, so they can get on it. It's a free app, so download it, definitely download it. And definitely connect with us on Facebook as well. So it's Qwerkz on Facebook, and on Instagram it's Qwerkz app. So you get to see something different on Instagram. You kind of get to see some of the athletes that we're kind of celebrating a little bit.
And it's Qwerkz?
Yes. Yep.
I think I only saw one other Qwerkz fudge or something like that. I don't know. Otherwise, you're pretty.
Yeah, because people are kind of like, man, what is like? how did you come up with that? Like,
Yeah, I love
because it's not a lot of that like going around. Like, that's great though. It's fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else going on locally that people can be looking out for y'all, or any big rollouts that they can?
Well, we're definitely going to be making a couple announcements here in the next month or so. So if you're following us, if you're a part of the app, or you're following us on Facebook, you'll be able to get all that information.
Okay.
I'm really big on kind of like controlling how and when and where our information come out and what it's like. So how people receive it and all that good stuff. Because once it's out, it's out. Like you have no more control of it. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really big on that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we try to like stay up with our startup spotlights too. So when you guys have cool things going on, I'd like to reshare it with our readers and our followers. Like,
well, I definitely will be reaching out to you, let you know what's going on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, good to see you, Corey.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. And so I want to thank our friends over at Enda for letting us hang out. This is their like little middle, I don't know what this is, like a tasting room, and then.
Did you get me a t-shirt?
Yeah, right behind us.
T-shirt.
Oh, we're getting a t-shirt?
Did you get that? Did you see that?
Oh.
Winning is a lifestyle.
Nice.
Like that's kind of like the theme, my theme, you know. So that's what I kind of live by.
Love it.
People get excited about winning, like, oh, winning, yes. I'm like, no, like it's the lifestyle.
It is the lifestyle.
You're gonna miss that, right? Like the lifestyle is not shiny. The winning thing is, right?
Yeah.
So you got to go through the gritty stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what it means. Yeah.
We like gritty stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, we will catch you guys probably in 2 more weeks. We're gonna have another startup spotlight soon. Until then, find Corey.
See you guys later.
Find us online. See you guys.